I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Well, we're less than 2 months away from the recriminalization of most drugs in Oregon. On September 1st, it will once again be illegal to possess drugs like fentanyl, meth, and cocaine. It follows the Oregon legislature passing House Bill 4002, which undid major portions of Measure 110. That's the law that decriminalized drugs back in 2020. A major focus of 4002 is the deflection programs that counties across the state are encouraged to set up. The idea is that if someone is caught holding or using hard drugs, they can be deflected into treatment instead of sent into jail. Now, you may have seen last week that Multnomah County signed a lease for a building along Southeast Sandy Boulevard in Portland to use as a drop-off site for that deflection program. Multnomah County's plan thus far leaves many frustrated, I got to say myself included, because there are no consequences. Some liken the plan to a different version of Measure 110. The deflection program, as it's been outlined so far, will not require people caught with drugs to enroll in substance abuse treatment. People will only have to check in at the drop-off center. Also, there's no limit on how often a person can opt for deflection over arrest. It's not exactly clear what that check-in process is going to look like, by the way, but in a statement last week, the county said people will, quote, connect and engage with a service provider who will conduct a screening and can help them access treatment, recovery, support services, housing, case management, or other services. Now, last week, Multnomah County's local public safety coordinating council met to talk about the deflection program. This is the group that's a collection of local leaders and public safety folks like the police chief, the sheriff, the district attorney, and is led by County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson. There are all kinds of interesting things that have come out of this meeting, so we're going to highlight a few so you can all understand better the county's deflection plan here. Let's start with law enforcement and their perspective. It's important to note that the deflection option will only be for people facing just a possession charge. If officers roll up on someone using drugs and then run their name and then find warrants for other offenses, they're going into the criminal justice system, not into deflection. So again, deflection only for possession of drugs. Here in Portland, here's what the police chief Bob Day had to say.
The main key from a law enforcement standpoint was the ability to interdict the behavior that's happening and then find an alternative so that we're not in the same boat we're in right now, which is where we just literally walk away. So we emphasize from a law enforcement standpoint that we wanted to have the opportunity. I fully expect that we'll be taking people into custody, handcuffing people, searching people incident to arrest, and then offering this deflection piece. So although we can characterize it as voluntary, it's not truly voluntary if you're in handcuffs, in my opinion, but we are going to make sure that that is available to individuals. And then where we go from there is to a separate location or someplace that will abate the problem from where it is. And I think that's the law enforcement component to it.
Okay, so let's say police find someone using fentanyl along the park blocks in Portland. They do not have any other warrants and can be offered deflection. If they choose that route, officers will bring them to the drop-off center. Multnomah County Commissioner Julia Brim Edwards wondered what will be required of people who are dropped off for deflection.
So is the only requirement the connection, not that actually the individual undertakes some sort of activity?
That's right. We want the connection to be an opportunity to be connected with a screening, with services, and with opportunities for treatment and recovery.
And would those be required, or is it just here's the connection?
Yeah. No, it's the connection is the only thing that we're requiring at this point.
What exactly that connection entails is still unclear. Signing your name on a piece of paper, perhaps, turning around and then walking out, maybe. Actually talking to someone who can connect you to services instead of just giving you a phone number, we'll see. The next part of deflection involves people getting unlimited opportunities to choose deflection over jail. There is no cap to how many times someone can be deflected in Multnomah County. So what purpose does that serve? Turns out the county chair says they haven't really talked about that very much.
The conversation is ongoing at the House Bill 4002 leadership table about what exactly the entire system is going to look like. in the conversation so far, there has not been a limit on the number of times people can go through, but I will say, I don't know that we've actually spent a ton of time around that particular issue. I do think that it needs to be based on the best practices from a health perspective, the best practices in terms of what actually was going to get us the outcomes that we want, which is that people being successfully on the pathway to recovery through treatment. And that's what's going to inform, I think, the decisions that go forward.
So even though it was broadly reported that there would be no limits, what you're saying is it's still under discussion. Just want to make sure
Yeah, I mean, so far we haven't put any limits on the number on people's ability to go through deflection.
All right, so as of now, no limits. Many of you believe the idea of unlimited deflection seems fairly ridiculous. Won't people found with drugs just take that route over and over and over and over again? Today, the Washington County DA's office told us they're giving people one deflection opportunity per year. In Clackamas County, the DA's office told us they don't have an exact number yet, but there will be a limit, whether it's once a year, maybe every 3 years, or maybe just once ever. So it's fair that many have been wondering why Multnomah County would even consider unlimited chances. And we finally got part of the explanation, and it came from the Multnomah County director of the largest public defense firm in Oregon, Metropolitan Public Defenders.
I mean, I think we've heard numerous times today about the tremendous dearth of resources that we have in our community. And a lot of those resources are for these most high acuity users, the folks who will be cycling in and out. We do not have enough detox beds to get those people in. And detox is really the first step for those high acuity users. And to place a limit on that is to essentially say that once that person comes in, if we don't have those resources for them and they leave, and then they've lost their chance. And then we put them into the criminal system where, as Judge Greenlick just explained, they won't be getting any resources there. And so while it may seem like giving numerous chances, what it really is an approach based on a realistic assessment of resources and a firm understanding that addiction is a complicated issue that you cannot just address with a single incident, a single referral to treatment, that it takes time. And part of this is creating a connection and a relationship so that when that individual is ready for treatment, they know a safe place that they can go to get that treatment, assuming it is available. This is a phased approach. And so it may not stay unlimited once there are sufficient resources available. But at this time, there just aren't.
So I'm sorry, just to clarify, you're saying it's unlimited, and that's from a public defender's standpoint, primarily because there's not enough detox or treatment resources. But if there were, there may be a different.
So I'm saying that is one of the bases, because if there are not resources available and that individual is deflected, then it's not really fair to consider that a deflection when that person didn't really have that opportunity to engage in services. But also, someone may not be ready for services. And best practices of all deflection programs are not abstinence-based. They're not requiring treatment. And so, while there are programs that do require that, when you look at what the national best practices are for this, very few are abstinent or treatment require based. And so, what it is supposed to be is a community-based referral process for individuals who, once having a conversation with someone who's been in their situation, decide that they want treatment. And that's what is most effective for treatment long-term.
All right, so far we've learned that Multnomah County's deflection program will only be for people caught possessing illegal drugs like fentanyl, nothing else. If they have other warrants or are charged with additional crimes when police arrest them, then no deflection is possible. The program, as it stands now, only requires people to check in at the drop-off site. What exactly that means, still a little bit unclear. And they'll have unlimited opportunities to choose deflection over jail, in part, they say, because there's simply not enough treatment beds and resources. But if someone is arrested for possession only and decides not to go to the deflection route and instead go through the criminal justice system, there's another issue that will certainly come up because it already is now, the public defender shortage.
If the case ends up being referred to court and not deflected, then the person first of all, has a right to have an attorney. And we don't have enough lawyers to appoint to all misdemeanor cases right now. Of course, it is of greatest frustration to watch people charged with significant felonies not get lawyers. But, you know, we certainly don't, we have over 24 felony cases without lawyers a week coming into the system right now. And if all the cases, rather than being deflected, would come to the courthouse, most of them right now, the way things stand, and we don't know when OPDC is going to have enough lawyers. Right now, they're telling us they're working on a 6-year plan. We don't seem to have a 90-day plan. And so the vast majority of people would not get lawyers, which means that they would be told to come back to court to see if we had a lawyer for them later. The vast majority of those folks would fail to appear if they didn't fail to appear for the first time. If eventually they did come to court and eventually they did get a lawyer, talk about revolving door. We have people having to come back to court without lawyers 2, 3, 4 times. Some judges in our jurisdiction will dismiss cases after somebody's had to come back 4 times. If they ever do get a lawyer, they have a right to conditional discharge. The statute 4002 requires that in order to successfully complete conditional discharge, you not only have to participate in treatment, you have to complete treatment. You know, requiring treatment when somebody is looking at going to prison 3, 4, and 5 years, that works pretty well.
Yes.
It doesn't work pretty well in these misdemeanor contexts.
Well, that's a lot to consider over the next 2 months. Again, recriminalization and deflection set to begin September 1st. So what do you think about what you heard today in regards to how this process will work? Too lenient with little requirements and unlimited chances, or striking a good balance between the goal of deflection and reality of a shortage of resources and public defenders, or something else? You could email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Now, let's switch from deflection to my opinion on Portland's camping ban enforcement. It was supposed to start yesterday on July 1st. Our reporter Blair Best, who is an expert on the homeless issue, hit the streets yesterday to monitor the action. We were sure that we would see police talking to folks living in the homeless camps that have racked up the most complaints in our city. We expected that the social outreach teams would have already talked with people living there, then alerted officers to the ones who were refusing to move. But you know what? Blair went out and found nothing. Nothing at all. Because nothing was happening. Now, you might not think that's much of a surprise, but I found it astounding. Just last week, Mayor Ted Wheeler sat down and told me during an interview that July 1st, the camping ban would be enforced, and the police and social work outreach teams were already briefed and ready to go. That may have been the case, but the reality is the city will not be ready to take action for at least another week. Why? Well, I'm told the City and Police Bureau have to set up multi-step protocols that they will follow to make sure that they are being fair. Those have already been set up. It also gives them something that they can point to protect the program if, or probably when, they are sued by those who want homeless campers left alone. Okay, I'll give you that. It does make sense to me. What does not make sense, though, is waiting until July 1st to take the first steps to launch those protocols. Why didn't you start 3 weeks ago? I understand that the city's change in government structure yesterday, pushing forward with camping enforcement, is now much easier than it was before. But still, this should have been started much earlier. And here's why. Way too many people have way too little faith that government can tackle big problems these days. July 1st was a perfect day to show them things have changed in the city of Portland. Police should have told the media to meet at a certain corner at a certain time and then follow the officers to the #1 problem camp in the city. Let the news crews document how it unfolds as the city really actually puts action behind the words. It may have gone smoothly. It may not have. I don't know. But more importantly, it would have told all of you and all of those living on our streets that the city of Portland has finally become a place where rules would not just be suggested but enforced. That Portland had become a place filled with compassion for those on our streets and also for those renting and owning homes and apartments and condos and businesses on those streets, and oh, by the way, paying the taxes that make all that compassionate care possible for the homeless. But that did not happen. So once again, we have words but no action. Now, I don't know how many times we in the public will have to tell our city leaders that we are long past the moment for words and now need action, but clearly it's going to have to be at least a few more times. I got to tell you, I am still hopeful that the city with this new structure will focus on the biggest camps with the most complaints in Portland, and I'm hopeful that they will offer a chance for those who live there to move into shelters and get whatever help they need for a productive life. And I'm hopeful that those who refuse to move will find that Portland is no longer all talk and little action. Let's hope that doing nothing on July 1st was just a dumb mistake and not a glimpse of the future. That's my opinion anyway. You don't have to agree, but you should communicate. What's your take on all this? You know the drill. Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. We love to hear from you. Our tent is big. There's room for all opinions from all over the political map. All right. Coming up next on The Story, we're crossing the Columbia River because voters in the state of Washington will likely get to decide the future of natural gas in the Evergreen State, thanks to a ballot initiative that appears to have enough signatures to qualify for the November election. Should you be concerned if you have a gas stove? We'll explain when The Story returns. Let's head to the state of Washington now, where a ballot initiative would make it illegal for cities or counties to prohibit, penalize, or discourage use of gas for heating and appliances. It would also allow gas furnaces to be installed in new commercial and residential properties. The initial law, passed by the state legislature, aims to reduce the carbon footprint of utilities and big greenhouse gas emitters in Washington state. But those backing this initiative say it will actually result in higher construction costs and is the first step towards all-out natural gas bans. Drew Mickelson has our story.
So it's coming out from under the floor here, and then it fills up this holding tank.
Well 80 Brewhouse and its beer made from artesian well water is a shrine of sorts to the old Olympia Brewery, where the water was a key ingredient. But here, natural gas also plays a big role.
Does everything from heating up the water that I need to boiling the beer when I'm brewing batches of beer.
Without their gas-fueled boiler, they wouldn't have any beer.
Every year, when the wind blows really hard, we lose power.
Down the street at Olympia Fireplace,
There seems to be a lot of pushback. You know, a lot of people are really not happy about this whole situation.
They're collecting signatures for Initiative 2066, which would scale back a recent law aimed at phasing out natural gas appliances in homes and businesses. Byron Dixon says about half of his products use natural gas, so he and about half of his customers are concerned.
We don't want to not have a choice of how we get our energy.
Puget Sound Energy is one of the largest polluters in the state because of their use of gas. Unfortunately, gas is a major greenhouse gas contributor.
State Representative Beth Dolio sponsored the law, which she says is in no way a ban on natural gas. She says the state is just in the planning process, looking for ways to reduce carbon, like requiring air pumps instead of gas furnaces in all new commercial and residential projects, codes that could be rolled back under the initiative. Even if the initiative fails or fails to make the ballot, Washingtonians will still be able to choose to use gas if they want, says Dolio.
The bill is not a ban on natural gas. Anyone in this state who is served by Puget Sound Energy, if they want gas, Puget Sound Energy is obligated to provide them with gas.
Interesting issue. We're going to keep an eye on that one. The backers of the initiative have until Friday this week to qualify. Organizers say they already have over 420,000 signatures. That's far more than the 324,000 they needed. The Secretary of State's office will have to verify all of those. If enough signatures are certified, Washington voters will have the final say on what happens with natural gas in November. Stay with us. We're back right after this. There's a new documentary coming out about Neil Goldschmidt, who died recently at the age of 83. Tim Gordon has a look.
Neil had a tremendous reputation. He was unlike any other Oregon politician.
He was very charismatic. I voted for him.
This is how the trailer for the documentary starts. The feature-length film to come is titled The Girl and the Goldschmidt Machine.
It's because this isn't just a story about Neil Goldschmidt, the crime he committed, and Elizabeth Dunham. this is also a story about the people who played a hand in one way or another.
Kristen Kingsbury is the filmmaker behind the documentary. She and her husband have been working on it for 2 years.
And in the back here, I have some really interesting photos of him.
Kingsbury has gathered a lot of material, piecing together a sad and sordid history brought to life by people like former state senator Vicki Walker.
People knew about it, and they did nothing. They did nothing.
According to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
For most of 3 decades, Goldschmidt got away with what he'd done. Elizabeth Dunham was 14 when Goldschmidt first raped her. It was the 1970s, and Goldschmidt was Portland's mayor at the time. He went on to serve as Oregon governor after a stint as transportation secretary under the Carter administration. All the while, the sex abuse of a young teenage girl was kept secret.
You know, I'd finally told the Oregonian, and they described the detailed information I gave him as an old, cold trail that led nowhere.
Featured in the documentary is Fred Leonard, a speechwriter for Goldsmith when he was governor.
I helped create an image of him as a child advocate. I felt like I was used to promote this man who should have been in the state penitentiary.
What other job pays you to fall in love with children every day of the week?
Some of the video clips Kingsbury has compiled have not aged well, to say the least, like Governor Goldschmidt speaking to the Oregon legislature.
My friends, perhaps it is time for you and for me to ask the question, if we know of abused children among us and do nothing to help, then who are we?
The irony of that coming from a powerful man whose repeated sexual abuse of a teenage girl ruined her life. Elizabeth Dunham died at age 49. Now Goldschmidt is dead too.
I think Neil Goldschmidt's legacy is that he destroyed a young woman's life who was full of promise, and he will forever be remembered, first and foremost, as the man that raped a child.
There's a lot of mandatory reporters out there.
Kingsbury's film dives into how it was possible for people to ignore the rumors and how Goldschmidt's inner circle protected him for so long.
This is not the story of someone who fell from grace, it's the story of someone who got away with it.
And how this is just one high-profile case of power being used for evil that continues every day.
Felt like this story could have more of a message to it, which is that child sex abuse is pervasive, and the way that we stop it is we talk about it, and we believe victims.
Look for that at the Portland Film Festival in October. That's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, the story, our collective story, it never ends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.